Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Friday, the 1st of November. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined by a full squad this morning. Chris Jack joins us. First of all, Chris, good to have you back on, and I imagine you'd have slept a fair bit yesterday. It would have been a late one for you on Wednesday night.
It wasn't an enjoyable evening at the office, put it that way. I got back in about 2:45, just as the wee one decided to wake up. So it was the back at 4 by the time before I finally got to my bed on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So a day off yesterday, thankfully, to just survey the mood. And obviously, I watched you boys read Josh's piece, read Stevie's piece this morning, and I think they both sum up the mood of the Rangers fans and sum up the situation that Rangers find themselves in quite well.
Yep, spot on. Stevie joins us as well. How's it going, Stevie?
Yeah, good morning, mate. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everyone that's watching.
Yep. Right, let's crack on into it. It's press conference day today, so we will hear the League Cup semi-final against Motherwell at Hampden. So we'll have all the latest, all the fallout from that. And those of you that are Rangers Review Extra members will also have the press conference reaction as well. Before we begin as well, before we crack on, apologies for missing this yesterday, but I missed a shout out to a lifelong Rangers fan who turned 82 yesterday, and that is Gordon Fisher from Bathgate. So a big happy birthday to Gordon, big fan of the show. A big happy birthday from Derek, Lee and Regan. So apologies, Lee, for missing your message yesterday, but yeah, hopefully you had a fantastic day, Gordon, and let's hope that better times are around the corner with regards to Rangers. We'll start off with you, Stevie. I know that Chris was on at Pataudry with Joshua after the game on Wednesday night. What did you make of it all, and where do you think Rangers are going here?
Well, they're going nowhere at a very steady pace, but what did I make of Wednesday night? I thought it was turgid to watch. I thought it was poor all round. It was the same old first half. The first half, I talked to Chris about this, but I lost count of the many times this season we can say should have been 3 or 4-0 down at half time. And we're extremely lucky it wasn't. And we don't play good football. The front four are non-existent because he just continues to have a style that involves just shelling the ball up front to a guy that cannot control it, who cannot hold it up, and very rarely gets the better of his centre half. So the whole front four is missed out. He looks fed up, as in the players up front, and the midfield are asked to do too big a job, and defenders can't defend. And it's just like, there's no style, Derek. There's no patterns of play. And if we're really honest, Aberdeen took the lead at a time where it could have been more. They had an open goal. They hit the post. They missed a penalty. There was other opportunities. It always seems to me when I'm watching Rangers, teams are literally lining up at the edge of boxes to take shots against us, and there's so much space. And it's just a recurring theme of defeats that we've had in the past. And then in the second half, we start a wee bit brighter, but we're pretty much, we're not offering too much, but we're in the ascendancy, and then we lose a feeble goal as soon as Aberdeen kind of muster attack. And it's all the same things, and it's all the same people, and it's all the same excuses. We have a young team. The average age of the team the other night was 27. It was older than Aberdeen, who had two 33-year-olds. So the excuses just don't wash anymore. And I feel a wee bit when he starts going on about this is the best performance of the season, I feel a wee bit insulted because it's an absolute nonsense, or it just shows how extremely low the bar is already, Derek. And then when he starts going on about we don't want to repeat it 12 years ago and that's none of your business, Phil. Your business is here and now, concentrating on what's going on right now. Never mind what happened before and your excuses. Spent 13 million in the summer, and this squad and this team are miles away from where it should be. And those 13 million that you've spent, 88 million of it straight away wasn't even, or including a man, didn't even start the other night. It's closer to 10. So it's just, Derek, we're now in, I think Johnny said yesterday, he's a dead man walking. In the eyes of the fans, I said it a couple of weeks ago, that in this period, he couldn't gain the fans' trust, but he could certainly lose them. And within 2 games, away to Kilmarnock and away to Aberdeen, the performances have been shambolic. He continues to select players that just aren't playing well, and selections and combinations that don't work. Lawrence and Dessers makes me want to pull my eyeballs out my face. It's just, honestly, I'm just sick of it. Like, the football is dreadful. It's dull. It's boring. It's slow. We don't ever break at pace. Everything's so turgid to watch. And listen, not all his fault. I get it. He's been dealt a poor hand, but he's made it poorer himself. And yeah, there's bigger things and wider problems at the football club. I absolutely get it, and I understand everything of that. And the boardroom needs to take massive responsibilities, and we've no CEO, and we've no this, and we've no that. I get it. All that context is absolutely fine. Doesn't stop you being able to pass it 5 yards, and doesn't stop you being able to run full pelt, close down, give it everything, show a wee bit of passion. Clips online of us 7-8 minutes in of guys jogging about, trying to get into the box when we were breaking. It's awful, Derek. It honestly is absolutely awful. And it's end of day stuff. We've all seen this before. Like, we've literally all seen these type of performances before. And it's only going to end one way. Do I want it to end that way? No, of course I don't. But it's now pretty inevitable.
Does feel that way. Chris, you were there on Wednesday at Pittodrie. As Stevie touched on, the press conference and his interviews to Sky and BBC were a tad bewildering, to say the least. As Stevie says, even if it was a better performance, it's not something that you say after a defeat against Aberdeen. The fans, as Johnny touched on yesterday, many of them, probably the vast majority, have turned and don't see how he can turn things around. Where do you stand on it all?
I think Stevie summed it up perfectly there. I couldn't have put it better myself. The football is dire to watch. It does not produce performances. It does not produce results. And you can look at all the sound bites of young squad and you in the building and progression and all the rest of it. Fans aren't seeing it. The fans are not buying what Philippe Clement is selling right now. And as Stevie said, that only ends one way. Now that results in eventually his tenure coming to an end. As Stevie outlined there, he had big chances coming back from the break. Rangers knew what they had to do. They knew the challenge that was there for them. They knew what Aberdeen and Celtic had done. Could they go and match it? Failed spectacularly at Rugby Park, and then failed on Wednesday night. Trying to suggest that Wednesday was one of the better performances of the season. I don't know if he's trying to convince himself or trying to convince those of us that were there watching it. But anybody that watched that cannot be buying what he's trying to sell right now. It's I think, as Stevie says there, it's only going to end one way. And again, you can look at the wider issues at Ibrox. No chairman, no chief exec, no sporting director. You can look at all these things. You can look at the financials and say there are clearly a number of issues. There are a number of issues that have to be resolved. Clement has made himself an issue in his own right over recent weeks and recent months, and unfortunately for him, he's the easiest one to resolve. Because trying to put a structure in place and trying to have the right investment in place, trying to rebuild a football department and take the business on again, they are long-term issues. You could have a short-term uplift in results with a change of manager. That's just the game. We have seen that often enough. We experienced this 12 months ago, and that's the situation that Clement finds himself in right now. For all the for all the talk of rebuilds and for progression, that only holds if the fans can actually see something to buy into, can actually see something to get behind. So I say that it's only ending one way, and it's just a matter of time.
Derek, how many times do we have to listen to the manager tell us after a game, we didn't win our duels, we weren't aggressive enough, we didn't move the ball quick enough, we didn't pass well enough? It's the same stuff, yet he will continue to pick Lawrence and Dessers. He will continue to play people out of position. He will continue to play the same formation. This isn't new stuff. I remember the 2-1 defeat at Parkhead when Jack Bolton saved a penalty. And in that first half, I think possibly O'Reilly scored the first, maybe McGregor, somebody scored from long range, and they literally stood outside our box, lining up to take shots all the time. Aberdeen the other night was the same. If you watch it, the amount of times that they had players free, the amount of times that they were able to cross, we don't close down, we don't play with passion. Chris Boyd was right. We do not dominate games in the slightest. And if you look at what I said in my column, and it wasn't meant to be ultra criticism, but it's what I see. The wins we've had this season, Motherwell at Hampden, comes from a bit of Czerny magic when he bends the ball in. Dundee United away, Tom Lawrence. Hibs at home, Tom Lawrence. Even Saturday, when you look at, or Sunday rather, St Mirren, that's a wee bit of magic from Dessers. The other night was all by Rami on his own. We're not playing football as a team. We're relying on individual moments against the backdrop of a football team that's not playing well. You'll never convince me that these players are given 100% at this moment in time. They look downhearted. They look downbeat with what they're being asked to do. Do they even understand what they're trying to do? It's not working. He's talking about synergy on and off the pitch and things like that. There's nothing on it that you can actually look at. And I guarantee you, it's the same as Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard, there's all this romantic side around him. When we first came in under Steven Gerrard, there was draws, I think, away to Aberdeen, away to Motherwell, and it was a pretty sticky start. Football wasn't great, but he had at least had Europe, and he at least had, against Celtic, there was a fire and a desire, and we beat them quite quickly in his second attempt. But the football was getting there. But the reason everybody stuck with it is because it was getting there. We could see something. Now, we saw something the first 3 or 4 months under Philip Clement, but it's fallen off a cliff. And we now don't see anything. There's no resemblance of any football, and it's turgid to watch. It's absolutely dire. Everybody's bored by it. Everyone's... Look, you see it on Sunday. There's a public sale for semi-final tickets. Nobody's going. This is the problem. There's nothing to cling on to on that football part that people can look at and say it needs a wee bit of time. And I've been very vocal. You can't keep sacking managers. And I think that's perfectly right. But Chris Boyd summed it up the other night when he said, I think that's correct as well. But when you don't have the right man, you don't have the right man. And how long do you leave it? Do you go and give him another transfer window? We don't have any money. You know what I mean? But this needs shareholders to come together and sort this out, because you can leave it as long as you want, but the mess of this football club from top to bottom, it needs proper guidance and leadership. It needs a CEO, it needs a chairman, it needs sporting directors, it needs mid-level management, it needs everything. And all that's going to happen is we'll just continue to teeter from bad result to bad result. And who have we got next? Motherwell, and then we're away to Olympiacos, and then I think we've got Hearts at home. Can anybody out there honestly guarantee 3 good performances or even 1 good performance and 1 good result? Because the last time I watched us play well domestically and enjoyed it was Ross County. And before that, it was Hearts away back in February. That's not right. 2 wins away in 10. There's so much evidence to support the fact that we've now reached a point where we can all reasonably say this isn't working out.
Yeah. Hard to disagree with that. If you want to look in detail at where Rangers are going wrong, I was on with Adam yesterday for a latest tactics show, looking at the game against Aberdeen and the alarming drop-off as well over the course of the last it's fair to say, and also look at the formation and why it's not working. And as Stevie touched on there, the synergy, it is non-existent at this moment in time. So do go and check that out, folks. Hard to disagree with anything Stevie said there, Chris. So it looks like Rangers, I mean, at this point in time, Philip Clement is the Rangers manager. They will plunder along into Sunday's League Cup semi-final. Again, he has to make changes for that game. James McLean with a point. I wanted to bring this up. He says, spot on, Stevie. A blind man can see the Dessers-Lawrence combination doesn't work, yet he continues to select them. He has to make a decision on that. Of the two, I would be more inclined to play Lawrence than Cyril Dessers, but Rangers don't really have adequate replacements in the offing, you could say. What can you see him doing on Sunday? He has to be radical for me, but I don't think he will be.
There is almost nothing of the last 13 months to suggest that the next 90 minutes is going to be any different from what we've seen so far from this Rangers side and from this Rangers manager. How many times have we spoken about the system has to change, the faith in certain players has to be put to one side. It's going to be roughly the same from Rangers. You may get the odd curveball like we saw on Wednesday night. Bizarrely, Jefty not playing at left back and Casemiro coming in there. You might get the odd decision like that. Largely, it's going to be the same group of guys, and it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same setup. If you're not going to change it for an Old Firm game, for example, if you're not going to change it for a game like Wednesday night, you're not going to go and change it for a game against Motherwell at Hampden. So I think it'll be roughly the same. I wrote in a piece a couple of weeks ago that Rangers don't dominate games; they edge games, and the numbers back that up over the course of the season. The Ross County game is a huge outlier. The European games are huge outliers. They are a squad that's rising to a European occasion, and then they quickly revert to a domestic norm. If Rangers do win on Sunday, it's one of these toss of a coin ones. It feels like every game right now, it's 50-50 whether Rangers win it or not. You could flip the coin 10 times. They might win 6, they might win 4. That's just how they are right now. You cannot, as Steve outlined there, nobody could say over this next week or so they'll go and win 3 games. You couldn't back them to put 3 good performances. You couldn't back them to put 3 good 45s together in that time. Never mind 3 90s. Such is the variation between halves at present. So I think the second half on Wednesday was better, but the bar was that low. The standard was that bad. It couldn't have been much worse if that was possible. So that's where just where we are with the Rangers side right now. They're too easy to play against. They're too easy to play through, and they don't score enough goals. Now, how many times have we discussed that over the last couple of weeks, Derek, on the show? They do not carry enough of a threat. If they do go and beat Motherwell on Sunday, it's going to be tight. Stevie turgid is the word he's used a couple of times, and it's hard to disagree. You know what Sunday is going to be. It's not going to change because the manager shows no willingness or shows no signs of either wanting to or being able to. So I don't expect anything radical. Don't really expect anything different. Say Rangers might win, they might not. Either outcome would be no big shock right now. And if that doesn't sum up where Rangers are, I don't think anything will.
This is what I don't get, Steve. I mean, everyone can see that Rangers, the system that he's playing, that he's adopting at this moment in time, doesn't work. Everyone but him, it appears. He has to change it, surely, or else, I mean, like you said, it only ends one way, and that is him leaving Rangers in the near future. He's got to do it, but he's not going, is he?
No. As Chris said, we've got 13 months of evidence to show that he's not going to change it. There's players there that could make a slight difference, I think, in selections. And, we talk about power and pace and stuff like that, and he's sticking Dujon Sterling on at right wing, and things don't make sense. Casemiro out of position. It's just, listen, we could all moan about it. James Tavernier looks a total shell of the player that he was at this time last year, when he was at least still contributing goals and assists and everything else. He's not doing that anymore. He's now he's now costing us goals, but he is costing us goals. He cost a goal the other night because he's just flat-footed and doesn't react, and then we're secondary to everything else that happens next. And it just kind of sums up where we are, Derek. And I had a go at him, and I asked him about his style of play and asked him about long balls and side-to-side passes, and he was very quick to quit back at me after Steaua Bucharest. We then went and watched a dreadful performance against St Mirren, where in the last 20, as St Mirren tired and we made a few changes, credit to him, we did kind of get better and we created some good chances, fine. But as Chris said, it's not 45 minutes, it's 10, 20 minutes here or there. Aberdeen the other night, all we did in that first half, Derek, every time we got it, was lob it forward to Dessers. And it's pointless. He's not interested in that kind of play. He can't do it. And the ball just comes straight back. And the three behind them are just lost. Bayrami looks an absolute shell of the player that came in, that looked vibrant, that looked bright, that looked enthusiastic. It's been sucked out of him within a couple of months because of the way we play. And it's just, honestly, I don't know what to say ahead of Sunday, because as Chris says, it's a toss of the coin. We might win. We might not. Kettlewell's quite a good manager. Yep. He's probably got a plan to figure us out. And it's not really difficult. And that's the problem. I'm now kind of just at a point where I'm exasperated. And it's not, as I said, it's not just all Clement. It's just not all blame him. But we know what's going on off the park. We know the situation there. On the park is what we watch and what we deal with every couple of days. And it's just soul destroying. It really is. And listen, even under the darkest days of semi-finals and everything else, you never really got public sales and stuff like that, and people not turning up and people not wanting to go. It's just because of the style of football and how we're playing and everything. It gives you little hope. And as I said, 2 wins and 10 away from home. I think we're -4 for goal difference away from home. Right? We're closer to 8th than we are closer to second. Like, even if people will come back at me and say, Stevie, you said in the summer we can't keep sacking managers and everything else, that's absolutely fine. I understand all that, and people are right to call me on that. You also cannot, at Rangers Football Club, be 9 points behind second place. Never mind first. If you take the fact that they are way over a horizon and they'll just keep going, you cannot be 9 behind second. You cannot be closer, to 8th than we are to second place. It's just, that's not acceptable. And we've lowered and chipped away at our standards at this football club so much that if people are willing to accept that now, then we may as well just chuck it, because this is honestly miles away from the standards of this football club. And the deterioration in such a short space of time, in a couple of years from a European final, is eye-watering. It really is. And it's about time that people who are attending games and that made their feelings clear.
Yeah. I do feel for the fans, especially paying their hard-earned money to go and watch that. They're not being entertained. It's more of a duty more than anything else at this point in time. Stuart with the point says, the 4th autumn in a row, we're in a managerial crisis. The blame lies at boardroom level. I don't think we can disagree with that. Do you see this board, and do you have faith in this board, Chris, as it is, that if they were to make a decision on the manager, that a replacement, a better suitable candidate could be found? I don't think many Rangers fans would say they would have total belief that they could go out there and identify a proper replacement for Philippe Clement at this time.
No, not at all, because like I mentioned in the last answer, we've got evidence of Clement not willing to change and being not being willing to make those big calls correctly. What evidence is there to suggest that this board and this group of investors can go and appoint a Rangers manager successfully? Because that's the reason the Rangers are in this position in the first place, because they keep making wrong appointments and keep having the wrong man in the dugout. Now, like, if you say this board that also includes John Gilligan as interim chairman, I would take him out of this situation. I'd take him away from the from the criticism of being asked to come in, do a job, fulfil out of a sense of duty and a sense of loyalty. John finds himself in a terrible position right now, having to come in and deal with whatever Rangers actually is right now. So when you criticise the board, I would take him out of that. But you're then looking at the members of that hierarchy that have been there for a long time. Yes, we see in the accounts that they are still willing investors. We see that they are still willing to put their money in, but they're putting money in to cover their own mistakes. They're putting money in to plug gaps that they've created because they've either appointed wrong managers, they've embarked on projects that have run over budget or over time, because they have put faith in people to go and sign players who are never going to cut it for Rangers now, writing off transfer fees. They're bringing in pennies compared to millions for players. So if you look at the investor group, you can't fault them for putting their money where their mouth is, but you can fault them for their decision making. You can fault them for their planning, for their execution. And there's almost two points when you say, fans will say, sack the board and it's time for a regime change, it's time for a takeover. If these guys are happy to continue putting their money in, that's one thing. They cannot be allowed and should not be allowed to continue making decisions. Steve outlined earlier on, we need a chairman, a chief exec, a sporting director, and a proper football structure round about the first team squad. Also includes the head of academy as well. And you then get proper management. When you have all those people, if you have the right people in place, Rangers can operate like a normal football club. They can operate like a big football club once again. If the guys that are putting the money in are the same guys that are making the decisions, history will continue to repeat itself, because they have shown that they are not good enough, that they don't make good enough decisions to run Rangers successfully as a football club. You can look at the accounts the other day there, and there's record turnover in there. Rangers as a business, see, in terms of taking money off people, in terms of season tickets and hospitality and merchandise and stadium tours, and Rangers are good at taking money off people. They're good at making money in certain business senses. They're not good at running a Rangers as a football club, and ultimately that's the most important thing. The accounts laid that perfectly clear. If you're not successful on the park, you don't win the Champions League, you make a loss. If your player trading model is non-existent and completely defunct, you do not make a profit. You don't make any money. And these guys they're having to cover these losses and cover these shortfalls because they keep making the same mistakes. It's one thing having the money to run Rangers. It's a very different thing having the capability to run Rangers. And I think it's clear to see over recent seasons that a number of the investors, a number of the guys who do have a say, they should not be allowed to have that say going forward.
Yeah, agreed. The press conference this afternoon, I fully expect Clement to wheel out the rebuild, and it takes time to integrate players into the squad, and I'm sure he's going to reference the accounts that were released earlier on in the week as well. But Stevie, on the park on Sunday, if you're in Clement's shoes, what are you doing in terms of system, personnel?
Before I get to that, Derek, in terms of Philip Clement and his constant chat about how much time it takes and everything else, he got shown up by a guy the other night who spent £2 million and has been there in the best part of a couple of months. So no, that excuse is long since gone in the eyes of me, certainly. I'm not going to speak for anyone, I speak for myself. But I was in the stands and understand what people are saying to me at Rugby Park, and dozens of people wanting to speak to me and tell me what I need to say to him and everything else. And Chris gets it as well. And the point is that you don't need months and months and months to have a structure, to teach a team how to press, to teach a team how to set up, to teach a team where to stand. Do you know, Derek, this is how silly it is. That first goal, there was no challenge for the cross. 3 players in the middle of that box unmarked. Players turning their back on the ball. Players not closing down. Players half-heartedly kind of making space. It's just, this is what we're seeing. You cannot tell me that they're well coached, because they're not. They're a mess. And it's just one guy has shown them up. And by the way, that's not mean to be disrespectful to Aberdeen or Jimmy Phelan, because he's doing a great job. And look, they are well drilled. They are well set up. They're prepared to run through a brick wall for him. That's the basics. We don't have that. So it doesn't matter what I would do on Sunday. And what I would do on Sunday is massively different to what anybody else would do. There would be major changes in my team, my setup, everything. But it's pointless, because he'll not change and he'll not do it. He'll not drop James Tavernier. He'll not play Dujon Sterling at right back, which he should do. He'll not play Casemiro at centre half. He'll not play Jeff Day. You know, there's another thing about Philip Clement. Redvan just missed Dynamo Kyiv 2 months ago. Just missed it. Chris is laughing. He was in the press conference. Just missed it. We're now in November, and he's doing wee bits outside with the first team. Stuff like that grains on me. It really does. Your midfield, you could... Listen, Lawrence Dessers Tavernier wouldn't be anywhere near my team. Ross McCausland wouldn't be anywhere near my team. You know, Connor Barron maybe comes out my team. There's changes to be made in there, Derek, that aren't, you know, popular, that maybe wouldn't work. But this needs shaking up, and it needs changes. And I would be dipping in to the likes of Zach Lovelace. Danilo would be in there. I'd rather have a one-legged Danilo up front than the current options. Hadji would come back in, because you just need to shake it up. You need to do something different. I would be telling them, Derek, that ball does not go in the air. Pass the ball, move the ball, use the ball in the depth. I mean, listen, what do I know? I'm just a guy that stands in the stands, right? I'm just as frustrated as everybody else, and football's not easy. I'm not saying it is, and I get it, understand it, and played Football Manager for too long, etc., etc. But I'm just... Honestly, I just think it's gone far too far now to have any sort of resemblance to anything. He could win the next 3 games, and as soon as he loses one in the league, that gap now is too big, and everybody will just say he's done, get rid, etc. We all know it. It was the same as Beale. Beale won 4 in the bounce after getting beat by Celtic. He was booed off in 2 of them. That Motherwell home game, you remember, the 1-0 win? Then we got beat and he was out. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was the exact same. And I think he went to St Johnstone and St Mirren and dropped points in both of them, and he was done. You know, it's just a recurring theme. Once you get where we are now, it's never going to be fixed. What I would do on Sunday doesn't matter. It's a wasted conversation of who I would play and who I wouldn't, because he'll go out and play the same and pick the same, and it won't work. And if it does work, then it gives us a wee couple of days of respite until we go to the next one against Olympiacos or Hearts or whatever. And the thing is, everybody playing us now, Motherwell will not get a better chance to beat us on Sunday. And they'll be licking their lips at it. So it's just extremely difficult to see any positives on that park at the moment at all. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right, before we wrap up, as a point here from Bolt Your Ball Bag, directed at your good self, Chris. It says, just a jovial point for you, sir. I spotted you and the family at a superb toasty shop in St Andrews during the school week. Didn't want to interrupt you as you were with the family. So there you go. A nice wee message directed to you, Chris.
Thanks for that. You should come up and say hello.
Yes.
Actually, on that same tip, someone else did come up and say hello. So I've been spotted twice on my holidays. Just a quick overnight during the school break. Weather wasn't that great that day, so it was toasties in the car.
Yeah. Right, that'll do us there. Just a reminder, folks, if you are a regular watcher to the show, just hit that subscribe button. So many videos that we do release over the course of the weeks, not just the morning briefing in the morning, and it's totally free as well. Stevie, you're chuckling away there. You want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'm just laughing because you never read out like people's names. Like you never go, "Oh, Derek says," or Chris says, or you always read out the worst usernames in the world. Like, and it just, honestly, in a pretty grim morning show, that made me laugh. Thanks, mate. What was his name again?
That's his name there. So there you go. Always good to end on a high, but yeah, we'll be brought back down to earth, I'm sure, over the course of the weekend. But yeah, press conference day today, folks. We will be back a little later on to give a reaction to that. And if you can stomach what the manager and whatever player has put up for the press has to say, those will be found on our YouTube channel. Go and check Stevie's column out on the website this morning. That is on there. It's a very good read as ever. Big thanks to Chris and to Stevie. As always, thank you to you all for tuning in to the show, and we shall speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.